Hi and welcome back to New Heritage Wool, where I take on tailoring projects and occasionally show tutorials on different tailoring techniques. So today is a continuation of doing sleeves. I will be demonstrating how to do a two-piece sleeve, drafting from a basic sleeve block. If you don't already have a sleeve block to work with, definitely go check out my drafting a sleeve block tutorial video and create your own sleeve block from there. Now, in this video, this two-piece sleeve is meant for a coat or jacket, so just make sure that you have the amount of ease and everything you need in your bicep and sleeve cap already. Again, you can address that in my previous video on drafting a sleeve block. So to continue on, I am going to start drafting, and I hope that your two-piece sleeve comes out just as beautifully as mine. Once you have a sleeve block, you're going to make a copy of the one you've made, and that way you can manipulate the copy and not your just finalized one. You kind of want to use that as a template. So I'm going to set this one aside and use the copy one that I have below it. Once you have this, to begin the first part of drafting, you'll simply fold the sleeves inward on itself and then trace the armscye onto this part here. So my paper is a little thicker than I normally use, so let's hope that this isn't too difficult for this tutorial. And then same thing on this side. Making sure you line up your underarm. Okay. All right, now you're going to trace this off and make sure that you also transfer your notches here. So I first need to indicate where they start, since I cannot see through my paper, and then just do a little dash. Okay, once you have that, and you make sure that these notches go on this side, once you have this, you're going to remove these two pieces from the pattern and set them aside. And then I'm going to fold this back on itself so I have a really clean line to follow with my scissors. Alright, once you have something that looks like this, this is something called an armscye block. And this is a method of drafting a two-piece sleeve that I have found to be the most simplified version without too many cutting, slashing, taping 1,000 pieces of paper together, and then losing a piece of paper, which sometimes happens with me. I'll put something down and then forget where I put it. But this is an armscye block. From here, if you wanted to, you could keep this and trace this off and always have this piece for you to use to draft any future two-piece sleeves that you may need. Also, you can decide to use this to manipulate, but I'm going to keep this and I'm going to trace it off onto this paper here before moving forward. So I'm going to do that really quick. Next, we're going to find the placement of our elbow and square off a line. So my elbow is 11 inches up from this hemline, so that's where I'm going to place and square off that line for myself. Alright, once you have this, we're really going to start creating the two-piece sleeve now. This is where it starts to take shape. So in a two-piece sleeve, there is always a really nice bend to the sleeve. And in order to create the bend, we have to start at the elbow and shift the bottom half towards the front. Now that I have a new battery in, kind of have to backtrack a little bit, but basically what I was about to say and then got cut off is that you're going to place your ruler along the center line first, and you're going to pivot along your elbow point to whatever measurement you decide to bend your sleeve. I'm going to do 1 inch because I believe the last sleeve I did, it was 3/4 and it just wasn't as much as I really wanted. So we're going to go for 1 inch and see what it looks like and dial it back if I think it looks too weird. So by doing that, my line now looks like this. The next step is to measure the width of your hemline on your sleeve. So mine's 6 inches, and then you're going to take that measurement, square your ruler up with your new line, and distribute half of that measurement on one side and then the other. So that would be 3 inches for me on both sides. So here and here. All right, from there, you're going to connect your new hemline over to your elbow on your front side and your back side. And then again over here. So you can now see that this is now taking shape. So once you have the bend kind of going on in your sleeve, the next thing you're going to do is reposition your seam lines. So right now, if I were to cut this out, adding seam allowance, and then cutting this out, and then say this was my undersleeve, this would be not that attractive of a sleeve in my opinion, because you're going to have a seam going right at a really ugly spot on the front of your body, on the front of your arm, and then not too attractive on the back either. So the reason why we're going to shift these is to make it kind of curve around the body in a really nice way without it looking like a pancake. You don't want a seam line right on the front. You want to kind of hide it on the inside of your wrist just a little bit, and then on the back it'll be visible. So with that said, take your ruler, and on the front and the back, you're going to mark inward. On the front, you're going to mark inward 5/8. Anywhere from 5/8 to a 1/2 inch will be fine. Alright, so that's 5/8 going this way, and then I'm gonna just do a 1/2 inch on, I'm just gonna do a 1/2 inch on the back side. Making sure to follow my new line, because remember we bent the sleeve, so that's our new seam line. Okay, I found a red pencil so I can do this and you guys see what I'm doing in the difference. I hope this helps. Okay, so everything you see that is in red, this is going to be our undersleeve. So that includes also this under here. Okay, that includes the underarm seam here. So what I'm gonna do, I have some tracing paper that I'm going to do to create this because I ran out of normal paper, of course. So I'm gonna take my tracing paper. At least this is helpful for you guys. It'll be easier for you to see it. All right. So what I'm gonna do is trace off what I'm gonna do here is just trace off my undersleeve portion. Okay, I have my undersleeve, so that's what your undersleeve will look like. And then from here, you can add seam allowance all the way around and you're good to go there. But we're not done yet. We still have to create the upper sleeve. And in order to do that, we are going to trace off the sleeve. And then we have to move this line here to the outside. Now hopefully this makes sense. I'll try to make it make sense as I go. Alright, so again, going to use my tracing paper. I'm going to transfer my center line all the way down because it's now going to act as your grain line. And I'm just going to label this upper sleeve. Then I'm going to just temporarily with my pencil trace off all the way around the top. Let's use that French curve. Alright, so I have the top half traced off. Now I'm going to do the bottom half, making sure to follow those new lines I placed down earlier, which is this red one here. Nope, the outer one first. Which is this one here on the outside. And then this one here. And don't forget your hem. Alright. So the next thing I'm going to do is transfer the red line that I placed earlier over to this side of my original line. Now the way I can do this is by first pinning down this in the center so it stays put. And then folding my paper from here to along this line, and then I'll have to fold it again for this half since it is bent. And then we're going to trace off the orange line here. I'm just going to use my pencil again. And I will trace this too, but then I'm going to true up my pattern later. Actually, it's this line that I need, not this one. Okay, I'm going to clean this up because I don't need this up here. So I can show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so I only have one little bit traced off right now, but I do want to show you the purpose. So, as the sleeve is right now, with this as my sew line out here on this edge, the sleeve is going to be right on the back of my arm, and I really want it to curve a little inward to make it look very smooth, and most especially in the front, but in the back it's always gonna be visible, but you still want to kind of have it shifted a little inward towards the side seams of your garment. So by doing this and transferring the line over here, that is basically the fabric folding over on itself. So as a pattern piece, we need it to be flat. So we have this line now. If I were to fold this in where the fabric would go up inward like this, and then this is my sew line here, and I matched up my undersleeve here, that's where I'm gonna sew it. So it's just hiding under your arm just by a ½ inch. I hope that makes sense. But moving on. All right, that is kind of how this sleeve works. Now I'm going to continue tracing off the rest of this before going to the next step. Alright, and the same thing is going to happen on this side. Keeping in mind that the front of my garment is 5/8 turned under and not 1/2 inch. Alright, so we have both of our sides transferred. I'm just going to erase this line so we don't mistake it for a seam allowance, because that's not what that is. Okay, so from here I can essentially add seam allowance, but just so you can see it a little better, I'm going to go over it in red just for visibility on this camera. I want to make sure you guys know what I'm doing here. And then, as usual, transfer the dart, or transfer the notches, and show you kind of what they look like together without making too much crunch noise with this tracing paper. So we have our upper sleeve here, and you have your undersleeve here. I hope that this method was super understandable. This is by far the easiest method I have found to draft a two-piece sleeve and not get lost in the sauce with the directions and measurements and pivoting and cutting. So this is kind of my preferred method of drafting a two-piece sleeve, and to me it's just more understandable, and it's easier for me to manipulate the bend of the sleeve with having to start over again. If I want to reduce or add more, I can simply take this out and put more tracing paper on and just really change this line here and this line here of where I need it to be, and it makes it just such a faster process. So that is it for today's video on drafting a two-piece sleeve. I hope that the instructions were clear and made sense. I know in previous videos that I have seen just trying to find other ways to draft, they were very hard to follow, and it was just a lot of cutting, slashing, taping, or pivoting. There's many different ways to get a sleeve pattern, but this is the one that I found the most simple and easier to understand and actually see it develop on paper a little more clearly. So if you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to share this video to anyone who might need to learn how to draft a two-piece sleeve. But until next time, I'll see you later.